Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Joel Roth, the head of programming for NAIOP Gulf Coast. Welcome to I think this is our third installment of the Power Lunch, which is a meeting held digitally, but eventually in person and digitally on the third Wednesday of every even-numbered month. So incredibly easy to remember, of course, and get it on your recurring calendar. And we're a membership organization focused on education, connection, networking, and advocacy. So to that point, we try to have our lead in discuss a recent development, our middle piece talk about kind of an industry goings on, and then end in advocacy. However, today our advocacy chair Evan is out of office, so we'll have a couple of words from Melissa Warren, our new board president, speak to NAIOP. But without any further ado, our two speakers today are Michael Naquin, who will be speaking second. He's from the Port of New Orleans. He'll be talking about the impact of tariffs on the port. And our first speaker is Brett Perrier of Perrier Esquerré, a local contractor extraordinaire, who's been doing a lot of work in the parish. And I'll kick it over to him now. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having us, or thanks for having me and presenting on our developments we've been doing. I'll share my screen here. Got a little small, quick PowerPoint. Okay, it's working. Let's see. Do y'all see the presentation?
Yeah, works for us.
All right, good. Okay, yeah, like I said, Brett Perrier. I am my primary business is a commercial contractor. We've been in business for 10 years. I'm a co-founder, co-owner with Keith Esquerré, and the proper way to pronounce our name, we're French as we're French as a French Quarter. It's Perrier Esquerré. So we've been starting to put our phonetics on a lot of our marketing material, which has been fun. So anyway, so we've been we started dabbling in our own self-development projects. I would say, I think it's about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, we broke ground on our first development project. We teamed up with 3 other partners. So there's a group of 5 of us. 2 of those partners are commercial real estate agents that we've known just personally and professionally in the past, but they presented to us a lot of activity that's happening in the Chalmette area with a lot of the traffic count and just a lot of activity, and then a lot of land available. So through the Mura Foundation. So we have since then formed 3 different LLCs for 3 of our different properties out there. Shrimp and Boots, Pulling Teeth, and Catch and Release. We try to be a little creative and fun with our names. Trying to get this thing to, oh, yeah, okay, good. All right, so here are the sites that we have developed or that we'll be developing, all along the West Judge Perez Drive corridor, right next to Walmart. When our partners came to us and said that there's land available between a Walmart and a Ochsner, and with the traffic count, we said that's a no-brainer. So our first development we did is the Shrimp and Boots development that you see on the map. And then we rolled into a land lease with 7 Brew Coffee across the street. And then our newest development will be the Catch and Release group is right next to that out parcel next to Ochsner. We're about to break ground. We're about 2 months away, 3 months away, waiting for permit to break ground on the 8,000 square foot multi-tenant. We call it just a strip center. And then we'll have an out parcel, potentially with a QSR or some sort of a restaurant concept. So we've been working directly with the Mura Foundation on a lot of these developments, and we have been kind of their quasi preferred developer. So we've been talking to them about future deals. This won't be our last one. This third one won't be our last one. So we've had a good relationship with them, and it's been going great so far. So this is just overall kind of all of the projects we've worked on or will be working on. And I'm going to talk about each one individually. I'm going to try my best. I know some of this some of the stuff we've done already obviously isn't confidential because of that, but definitely the one we have coming up, I'll try my best to keep everything with my partners, not breathing down my back. So we did the Site 1 development. We did a handful of test fits from other programs either we've worked on in the past as a contractor or we've seen other clients. It's very simple and straightforward, but effective. So this was just a couple of test fits we did for the site, a couple of more test fits for our first site, which is the 4-tenant bay. You know, we went back and forth on that. We ended up landing on this property and this development, which is the one we completed from start to finish. Currently, all of our tenants, it's leased out. LCMC is our urgent care, Wingstop restaurant, Subway restaurant, and an AT&T facility. You know, we're pretty proud that, you know, it was a new construction project, 1.5 million in cost for just the construction. I can't recall the land costs. I would share that if I had it, I just don't have it. It was a 6-month duration for the construction. It was a combination of delivering, you know, spaces, whether it's a dark shell, whether it's white box, or whether it's complete build out. We did we performed 2 build outs for the tenants as the contractor / landlord. And the good news is it was all pre-leased prior to us starting construction. So our 2 leasing agents, I mean, they do a really good job with recruiting tenants and getting the right tenants for our type of developments. This was built around 23 or 22, I believe. And, you know, we had some lessons learned, which I think we all have learned or are learning from that time frame was or that time period, just the escalations and monitoring the cost. So we did have some challenges along the way towards, I would say, middle of the project. Because, you know, we developed a pro forma, we got the land loan. I'm sorry, we got the land loan and then the construction loan, and then we were waiting for the tenants. In that timeline, we had a lot of challenging avenues with different escalation and volatility in the commodities. So that was a challenge. It ended up working out okay. We just got resourceful, but we learned some lessons on how to time the leases and time the commitments. And you know, as a contractor, we've learned the lessons to pay more attention to commodities and to be more transparent. Not necessarily more transparent, but to really focus in on some items we have to procure early to secure costs. It's still a juggling act when you're trying to secure leases, project costs, and start construction as a contractor developer. But we've learned those lessons and we've applied them to the new center we're building, which will be site 3 that I'll talk about a little later. So all in all, you know, the tenant looks really good. We had, you know, St. Bernard Parish gave us a lot of feedback and collaboration on the facade. It is nice and simple and straightforward, but they did require certain elements that we couldn't use. That was kind of a curveball for us, but we were able to adapt to it and appease them. So we were able to work well with them. And so far, so good. So the tenant's there, LCMC is there. All is good. Rent checks are coming in. So everything's going okay on that project. So from there, we also, I think it was about 6 months after we purchased that property, we purchased this property, an out parcel outside of Walmart area, or the Walmart parking lot. So as you can see, this is between Rotolo's and a Raising Cane. So the traffic count was pretty high. We went through a lot of different scenarios, different tenants. I know we developed the company, and you know, we try to have fun when we can. So we developed a pulling teeth company name because we had 2 or 3 national dental concepts interested in a new construction, but we ended up landing on 7 Brew out there. So 7 Brew was an interesting one for us because it was, as a contractor, it was interesting because it was a land lease, and they build their buildings, their prefab. So I think when their contractor mobilized, I think they were done within 3.5 months. So it was pretty fascinating to see that process. And they're doing really well right now too from a tenant standpoint. So it's a land lease, tenant site develop. They built a prefab building, and then the challenge here, we did have a lot of back and forth and collaboration with Walmart to have a shared access agreement from their parking lot. But I'm gonna tip my hat to our title attorney and our real estate partner. They kind of led on that. It's a little above what we specialize in, but I'm glad to have them on our team for sure. I don't have a finished picture of the Seven Brew, but this was a pretty darn close finished picture. Again, pretty easy concept, a lot of concrete, a lot of drive-through. We passed by a handful of times. It's doing pretty well. So they so far good tenant. So no issues, or no issues with Walmart either. There's a lot of back and forth with the shared service agreement. Um, so this is site 3 that we're currently about to start construction on. Parcel 1, it's a 2-parcel site. Parcel 1, construction value is about 2 million. Square footage, 8,000 square feet. Still projecting about 4 tenants. That may change from 4 to 3. Just depends. We do have a handful of leases that are being negotiated and finalized. I would imagine we'll have 2 leases signed, 2 anchor tenants signed prior to driving piles. It's currently, a big schedule snafu with these types of projects is getting DOTD approval. So, again, that kind of affected us on the first development. We planned ahead on this one. Again, it's the same partnership group too. It's the same five investors, developers, and we're waiting on DOTD approval, waiting on approval from the parish. And then we're starting to project to start driving piles around September of this year. And I would imagine 50% through we'll have it fully leased out. And what I want to comment on this parcel 1 strip center is we're having a bidding war between some tenants, which is good because it's helping us with the escalated construction costs. So it's a good spot to be. Again, go back to lessons learned. And then parcel 2, it's still TBD. It'll be a new construction, either a QSR or some sort of a restaurant concept. That's kind of what we agreed with the Miro Foundation. We think we all think it'd be benefit to the community. And we're gonna do either a land lease or build to suit. So pretty quick. I think I abided by the German train philosophy.
Well played.
Got 13 minutes, but any questions? Any simple questions, complicated questions? I'll see if I can answer.
I have one.
Yep.
Brett, has the Miro Foundation approached y'all about doing development in any of their other properties, or have they just focused on that one area?
So far, it's mainly that corridor. I know one of my partners is talking to them pretty continually on other areas and other needs. So it's kind of a, as a developer, as we all know, you just take one project at a time and you don't want to do too much at once. But yeah, they're still in talks with doing other things in other areas for sure. Specifically, I really don't know, but I know our focus has been that corridor with the available property and the traffic count. And it's crazy. We have high interest on the parcel number 2 for that new development we're doing. So we're having high interest from a lot of different QSRs.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brett. That's really cool work, man. Good to see you guys getting into the development game. It's a long, a lot of runway ahead of you guys.
Yeah, we're
excited to see what you guys come up with in the future.
All right.
Cool. All right, Michael, we'll kick it over to you. Good question there.
Right. Well, thank you, Joel. I certainly appreciate it. And for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Michael Naquin. I'm the Marine Terminal Real Estate Manager for the Port of New Orleans and also a CCIM. Before I get into the topic that I want to speak about today, which is the tariffs and how they are kind of affecting the port and other ports across the country, I do want to add something to what Brett was talking about, more specifically in St. Bernard, in how the Louisiana International Terminal will certainly affect development of St. Bernard and the I-510 corridor over the coming years. So it's certainly an area to watch. You know, if you've been paying attention to what's happening, the governor has just pulled in Michael Heck as kind of, you know, as they've dubbed it, the LIT czar, to help push the project forward. But most importantly, I think that what's really come out of that is you're starting to see a real buy-in from the state for this project. So, you know, for the people who are in development, the people who are real estate brokers, you know, certainly start to look into the properties surrounding the LIT area. Certainly, like I said, on the I-510 corridor, and you know, look for opportunities. It's going to be a little bit of a long-term buildup, but you know, there's certainly going to be opportunities, I think, for brokers and developers. So just kind of keep that in mind. But what I want to talk to everybody about today is basically the tariffs that the Trump administration has, you know, imposed mainly on China, but on other countries throughout the world, and more specifically how those are affecting the Port of New Orleans. So to give you an idea, the thing that is probably affecting us the most is not so much the tariffs and reciprocal tariffs on goods as much as it is the tariffs on Chinese built ships, right? So just to kind of give everybody a little bit of a background, you know, under Trump's second term, at the beginning of the year, we saw a escalation in tariffs, and it was pretty dramatic. You know, they imposed a universal 10% tariff, which was launched in April, and then added another 10% to Chinese goods by March. And when we got into April, we basically saw a 25% tariff on all Chinese goods. And what that accumulated from was, in Trump's first term, the U.S. Trade Representative, or USTR, they had already imposed tariffs on Chinese goods. So that basically accumulated to the 25% tariff that we were seeing before. I think we saw kind of a retaliation from China. And once we saw that retaliation from China, Trump's, you know, move there was to basically push their tariffs up to 145%. And that didn't last very long, because it did bring China to the table and force them to kind of negotiate with us, at which point there was a pause that was put on that 145%. And what basically happened is those tariffs came down to about 30 to 55%, depending on the type of cargo that they were actually moving into the U.S. So, you know, from consumer goods to metals, you have slightly different tariffs on those items. But, you know, it's a pretty complex mix of tariffs. And certainly, you know, the reciprocal levies aren't really helping the situation, because I think we already kind of have an adverse attitude towards some of our shipping partners. And while it has brought a number of them to the table, you know, effectively what has happened is that I think most people don't really understand that these tariffs effectively amount to a federal sales tax on all goods consumed in the U.S. via imports, you know. So I think a lot of people kind of find the tariff conversation to be boring or not something that they're paying attention to. But I find as more people realize that this is going to directly hit their pocketbooks, and as Brett said, it's certainly affecting the cost of construction on the development end, I think kind of more people will wake up to what is happening and try to see if they can somewhat influence, if Trump could be influenced, what is happening, in realizing that you know, as an American citizen, you are basically paying now a federal sales tax on top of your state and local sales tax. But truly the biggest thing that is hurting the Port of New Orleans right now is the new tariff on the Chinese built ships. So what that means is that the Trump administration basically announced that any ship that was either built in China or operated by a Chinese conglomerate was going to start paying a special tariff for these ships to basically dock at any U.S. port. And what that effectively did was it put a charge of roughly about $120 per TEU on that ship. So if you think about it in terms like this, so first off, a TEU stands for a 20-foot equivalent unit. So shipping containers are mainly 20-foot and 40-foot in size, with 40-foot containers representing 2 TEUs. So what that did is if you could take a 12,000 TEU ship, so that's a container ship that holds 12,000 20-foot containers, that put about a $1.5 million per voyage tax on that ship if it was built in China, right? Now, when we get into 2028, that fee is actually going to increase into $150 per container. Now, the levy only applies once, right? So basically what that means is that when a ship leaves China or any other port of call, as long as it's Chinese built, so that means it can come from the Mediterranean, but if the shipping company that owns the ship had it built in China, they have to pay this levy, right? So that's kind of one of the things to understand. It's not just on goods coming, or shipping containers, I should say, coming out of China. It's goods and shipping containers on Chinese built ships, right? So subsequently, what that's going to mean is that ship is going to come into the US. It's going to pay this levy one time at the first port of call that it enters. So if it's leaving China and it goes to Savannah first, it's going to pay that roughly $1.5 million at its first port of call, which will be Savannah. And then after that, it's able to go to all the other stops in that rotation. Now, when it ends that rotation and it returns back to China, that whole fee process starts all over again. So in the next voyage, it'll have to basically pay another $1.5 million. And you could estimate that most of these ships will take about 10 rotations a year annually. So you're adding roughly $15 million to the cost of shipping just through these levies. And if we could kind of put that in perspective of what that also means for shippers, more or less consumers, and certainly the buyers of this cargo, if you look at it, so from this perspective, right now, if you were to ship a shipping container from China, that cost is about $5,840 per TEU. And that's actually slightly down from a week ago where it was $6,000, roughly almost $6,000 even, to ship one shipping container. So that's one TEU, 120 foot. Now, if you think about it in this perspective, 90 days ago, to do that same container, it was only $3,500. So that's roughly about a 62% increase. And what's really forced that is that once China came to the table and the US agreed to put a 90-day pause on these tariffs, you had a rush of good buyers trying to get their shipments into the US before the tariffs actually take place and this 90-day pause ends. And it does look like that we are going to reach some type of an agreement with China. So, you know, I think the rush to get this cargo into the US was, you know, for the most part, a little presumptuous, but at the same time, understandable, because once again, you know, from retailers to developers, contractors, if you will, you know, those people are trying to protect their interests and keep their costs down as well, you know. So it does kind of make sense. Now, the Port of New Orleans could potentially see a little bit of an increase in our imports on shipping containers, because what'll end up happening is you'll start to see backlogs at ports like LA Long Beach, Houston, and potentially Savannah as well. And if you think about it in terms of this, if you go back to COVID, at one time, there were over 65 ships waiting to get into the Port of Long Beach. There were approximately 15 ships waiting to get into the Port of Houston, and there was roughly about 6 to 9 ships waiting to get into the Port of Savannah. So you could see a slight shift from those ocean carriers to kind of, you know, get these goods in a little bit quicker, because certainly they make more money as these ships turn over faster. But we don't really expect that is going to help us, because what is happening through the Chinese built tariff is we have already seen ocean carriers such as MSC canceling lines that come to the Port of New Orleans and consolidating the cargo that they move on those lines into some of their larger ships. So any I think increase that we could potentially see in shipping containers will basically be offset by the consolidation and canceling of some of these lines or other ships, if you will. So it actually could lead to a slight decline in container volumes for the Port of New Orleans. You know, so, you know, kind of looking ahead for us, I think, you know, the vessel tax is certainly a mounting concern for us, and it is already reshaping the shipping patterns. You know, you could easily also see some of these inline consumers trying to, as well as the ocean carriers, move their shipments through Mexico and Canada, therefore kind of skipping that levy. Now, they're still going to pay a slight levy because, once again, we've imposed levies on Mexico and Canada. You know, if they bring their shipping containers in by truck or rail, they will pay a levy, but it will be dramatically less than what they would pay to continue to actually drop those containers at a port of call in the US. So that is something we haven't really seen, but it's something that we're definitely watching pretty closely right now to see if they have a large shift. And the way that we will be able to track that is through our third-party logistics companies telling us essentially, hey, you know, we're starting to see increased movement coming across the Mexican border, specifically in shipping containers, you know. So it's going to be interesting to see. I know right now, tentatively, what they're talking about is whenever China and the US finish their negotiations, we'll probably still look at somewhere between a 35 to 55%, kind of where we are right now, that staying and actually becoming the norm on the tariff side. So, you know, beyond that, I don't think there's really much more that's affecting the Port of New Orleans right now. But, you know, hopefully with the tariff that they're putting on the Chinese built ships, you know, there's two hopes. One, that either it's just going to go away, right? Or B, it's actually going to lead to what the Trump administration is truly trying to do with this tariff, which is to force these shipping lines to build their ships in the US, right? But one of the things to realize about that is, you know, the average container ship takes 5 years to build, right? And if we're not actively building those ships now, you won't really see any increase in US built ships. I mean, at this point, likely until 2031. You know, so these tariffs are going to probably stick around for, I would say, for foreseeable future, at least for probably the next 5 years. So with that said, if anybody's got any questions, I'll do my best to answer it.
I have a question on the ships. With it taking so long to build them, would there be a high probability or possibility if a different administration comes in 3.5 years, they remove those tariffs or
Absolutely.
how
Yeah.
fast or slow does all that take place?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we saw, let's say, a knee-jerk reaction to Trump, and then we move to a Democrat administration, I mean, on day one, that administration could come in and reduce or remove almost every single one of the tariffs that Trump has imposed. And one of the things that we've kind of heard trickles about, but there hasn't been anything definitive, is if a company like MSC, Mediterranean Shipping Company, were to sign a contract to build a container ship in the US, and let's say that they sign that contract in 2025 or 2026 even, they could see either a reduction in the fee that they pay or a possibility of the fee going away entirely. But we haven't heard anything concrete. That's just kind of like the whispers going through the halls right now. So
Cool. Certainly, man, that was great, Michael. I really appreciate that. I mean, that was a great kind of distilled version for New Orleans.
yeah,
Great.
sorry I didn't have a PowerPoint, but my
No.
PowerPoint would have been fairly boring with a
No,
whole
that
lot of
was
numbers on it.
that was a compelling speech. Thank you. I appreciate that. With that, I'm going to kick it over to Melissa Warren, our new president of NAIOP. Who's going to talk us out.
I'm going to talk you out. Okay, it's going to be fast. Hey, Joel, thanks for putting together again some awesome programming. I really appreciate all that you do for NAIOP and the organization. You've really pulled this together this first 6 months. And Brett and Michael, phenomenal presentations, very applicable information as it's all hitting over in St. Bernard Parish. And the linkage between what happens at a port and the ripple effects it sends through the community. In terms of development. Joel, did you mention our upcoming events, or did you want me to do that?
I did not mention those, so
Okay.
please.
Well, look, so on the heels of this virtual power lunch today, we're going to have on Monday at Woodward Design Build. Joel has generously offered to host us there and buy lunch for everyone. And he's hosting it with GNO Inc. and Zach Smith Consulting. We're doing a post-legislative roundup on everything coming out of the session up in Baton Rouge. Zach's going to talk about everything municipal going on, which we have a lot that's happening in Jefferson and Orleans Parish. We need some feedback on. And then Joel's going to present on one of his great developments that he's got going on.
Yeah, and GNO is going to do a big download about all the things that happen in Baton Rouge. And we've also got Dave Dempsey, who's going to speak to the Historic Tax Credit Coalition of Louisiana and what they've done to make sure that those historic tax credits stay on, we stay eligible to receive those credits. And they're actually growing. So please come out. It's going to be another really good event.
It is. It's going to be in person. And look, y'all, it's free, like I said. So if you've got people that you would like to introduce to NAIOP, or people you think want to come to the table and just learn a little bit more about what's going on, please bring them. Please get them registered. You can find the registration links on our website and on social media. And then on Wednesday in Baton Rouge, we're happy to say that we're partnering with BRAC, and Evan Scroggs of Lee & Associates has generously offered to pay for lunch there too. We're doing this at the BRAC offices. We're going to have BRAC and LED give the post-legislative roundup. And we actually have someone coming in from NAIOP Corporate, Toby Burke, who is our Vice President of Legislative Affairs and Statewide Legislative Affairs. He's going to come in and meet with us that day. So bring friends, bring colleagues. The more the merrier. We'd love to get the word out, but I want to thank you all for attending today. These continue to grow in popularity, and Also send us your feedback. If you've got any ideas or anything you want to, give us some feedback on, we're open for business. And Joel says, we build this plane as we fly. Well, we're actually getting off the ground now. So we're getting, our pilot's license, and things are going very, very well. And we appreciate each of you for supporting us. So thank you.